Okay, as I showed, this is going to be me replacing this yellowish tank, which I'm told is the coolant recovery reservoir overflow tank. I bought this Cooper a couple weeks ago from a friend, and I noticed that it had some fluid spitting out the front here along the seam, and 5 seconds on Google told me that this happens all the time, about every 5 years with the older tanks. Fortunately, they're pretty inexpensive. I ordered this one off of, I think it was Amazon, for 28 bucks, $26.32, from a guy, I think it was in New Jersey, but it showed up pretty quick, as did the bottle of antifreeze coolant that a lot of the forums recommended I use, rather than just the generic stuff, which I happen to have on hand, but figure why not do it right if possible. So I noticed some fluid spitting out of the front of here when I took it to DEQ for emissions testing, and it wasn't a lot, it wasn't spraying, it was just drop, 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 just enough to get hot, vaporize, turn into a thin white smoke that smelled sweet, like coolant. It was pretty easy to diagnose, pretty easy to identify the issue, and pretty inexpensive, and hopefully not time consuming if everything goes as planned. So step one is going to involve me taking out the old fluid and putting it into a water bottle using a turkey baster. Noticing just how low the level is. More of it leaked out than I realized, which will make this easier, but also explains the wet spot on the garage floor. So now I've got the level down low enough to where there's just a little bit of moisture left. I'm going to use an old t-shirt to shove in there, hopefully absorb most of the fluid so that when I take the hoses off the bottom and side, I don't get a lot of fluid dumping out. Okay, I've shoved half the t-shirt inside the vessel here, and I took the other half, flattened it out, put it underneath where the hose connects to the bottom of the reservoir. I've identified that there's a screw here, there's a hose with a screw and a collar underneath, and then there's this one socket nut right here. So with luck, let's take those three things apart, put in the new one, put those three things back on. I've been assured by a guy that made a YouTube in Hawaii that did this for the first time that it is as easy as it looks and it should take 15 minutes. Okay, now comes the fun part, where we find out if I can do this without looking up any instructions and figuring out what I should do right. So I'm not going to take the screw off all the way, just enough to loosen the collar on the hose so I can pull it. I guess I'll go ahead and do that now. It's pretty loose. Yeah, so it just pops off. And let's do the one underneath so it's supported by top. This is where the fluid might come out. Collar's loose. So now I should just be able to pop that off. Tight fit. But it is moving. Oh, almost no fluid came out. Maybe that means there was none left in there, the shirt's doing its job. Okay. Finally, the nut. I'm going to do my best not to lose any of these parts. appears to be part of it, so I just have to keep track of this nut on the cap. There's two little plastic prongs that I noticed on the bottom of the new tank here that sit in holes on the backside facing down, like this. So it's just going to be a matter of finagling those out, it looks like. This is loose on the bottom. It's just stuck in that last tong. There it goes. It's an awkward fit. Try not to pop anything off here. There we go. A little bit of fluid out of the bottom. The leak appeared to be coming from the front, but I can see that there's a gap in the back of the tank as well. I just used some adhesive, general purpose adhesive, to cover this up for the time being so I could drive it around a little bit. Let's take a look at what it looks like without the reservoir in there. So this is what it looks like without the reservoir tank. I got a t-shirt down there. Well, you can see the fluid in the pipe. So that's good, I guess. That's where the tongs go. Bolt 1, screw 1, and then the other collar down there. So now I just do the reverse, put in the empty. Okay, now comes hopefully the easy part. Hose, hose, bolt, prongs. Okay. I'm going to try and put this in to the hose first, since it is a little bit more difficult to access. Well, I guess I have to seat it on the prongs first here. Okay, well, that was easy. So it seats on those prongs pretty easily. Shoot. I guess there is a way you have to do it here. You can't get this bolt into the hole unless I put it in first. And then shove it back on those prongs. Okay. I guess before I put it in, I have to use one tool to try to shove this in the hole. There we go. Okay, so it's got a lot of pressure both above and below on it to keep, I guess, from wiggling about. Well, that's step one. I'm not going to put this bolt back on until I get these hoses on. I'm just going to start with the first one that's accessible here. Hopefully these hoses are in good shape. I don't have the abilities to really check them out myself. But I will be taking this in for an oil change next week anyways, and have them given a once over. I'm going to secure this just so it doesn't slip off, but I'm not going to go all the way tight yet. I'm going to use two different screws. I've got a Phillips and a standard on, so you can't just use one screwdriver easily. Fortunately, the hoses fit on pretty easily. My main concern is making sure that they're seated so that when I put fluid in, it doesn't spill out all over the interior of the car, because I don't have a lot of extra. You just got to kind of feel around the neck here. Some of the fluid that was in the hose spilled out a little bit, so I'm going to try and mop that up so it doesn't create too much smoke. Tightening the collar. This one I am going to do all the way just because there's only 3. think I want to over tighten it. I just want to make sure it keeps the hose on. Okay. I have to come back in and dry up some of the fluid here. But that appears tight. I'm going to do this one now. A couple more screws. Okay. Seems good. And now this. I'm going to hand thread it. Well, so far this does seem as easy as advertised. Now comes, once I put fluid in, make sure it holds and that the hoses are tight. I am going to have somebody check my work next week, so if I screwed anything up, hopefully they'll tell me about it. I'm going to use the new cap, even though they appear to be identical. Okay. So, now time to take a look at the new reservoir. And you can see down the side those fins. The internet also tells me that you put the fluid up until the tops of those fins are capped, and that's how you know you've got the right level. Plus there's a little indicator on the side that of course is impossible to read the line of the fluid inside the bottle. Maybe if you put a flashlight behind it, it would help. So before I put any fluid in, I'm going to try and mop up as much of what appeared to come out as possible. It wasn't a large volume, but I want to be able to tell if there's any leaks. I'm going to use a piece of paper towel to hopefully tell me that. Hose is dry. The hose dry in here. Now comes Philip. So I'm going to take a water bottle, the one I used to empty the reservoir as much as possible originally. Emptied it out. Ordered BMW Group antifreeze coolant. What is this? A full liter. I'm going to put half the bottle of this, and then half the bottle with some distilled water. Slowly oscillate it back and forth, fill it up, see what the level looks like. So I'm going to start with that much. Fill the rest with distilled water, and then check the level. Okay, so it's 50% distilled water, 50% coolant. It's got a real pretty teal color. The stuff that was in there was green, so it might have been generic. I don't know that this is completely necessary, but I don't want to shake it really. I figured just oscillating it would make sure that it gets mixed, so no matter how much I pour in there, it'll still be a 50-50. Okay. Now I'm going to attempt to get as much in the tank as possible up to the line, and hopefully not experience any leaks. It's already halfway up to the fins, and wow, good estimate. That's the top of the fins right there. It's really blue. It's like glacier ice. You can just see the glint. You can see the top of the fin right there. Just barely has fluid going over it. Okay,